Hi, I'm Varun Lakshmanan, Senior Program Manager on the Azure Stack HCI team at Microsoft. In this session, we will cover how you can leverage VM networking on Arc VMs for HCI. All right, let's dive right in. So, in today's session, we'll start with the current capabilities of Arc VM networking. We will then touch upon the benefits of having static virtual networks on Azure Stack HCI. Then I would present the feature timeline. And then we move into a quick demo for the feature on both Azure CLI as well as Azure Portal. Finally, we'll round off the presentation by summarizing the key takeaways. Let's take a look at the current capabilities. VMs deployed using Azure Arc VM Management get their network configurations from the virtual network that is created on the Azure Stack HCI cluster. On the top right of your screen, there's a network topology diagram that shows this virtual network as a blue dotted line. Arc VM Virtual Network currently supports only DHCP allocation mode. Your DHCP server automatically assigns IP addresses to the various virtual devices you create on your virtual network. For example, today, if you were to create an Azure Arc virtual machine on a HCI cluster, when you go to add a network interface card onto your VM, the option on IPv4 settings is defaulted to dynamic. What this means is that the DHCP server will assign a dynamically assigned IP to your network interface card, which the VM then uses to connect to Azure and use all the Azure-based services. Now that we've seen the current capabilities, it's a good segue into our next topic, which is static-based virtual networks. Static-based virtual networks has some key benefits over DHCP-based virtual networks. For example, if a customer uses a VM to host critical services that need to be always running, for example, a domain controller, a web server, or an email server, it's preferred to have a static IP based VM. It offers more stability and does not refresh like DHCP does, thereby preventing loss of connectivity to the internet. Another good example where static IP is beneficial is when a network landscape uses firewall rules to allow and deny traffic using IP address ranges. In such cases, customer needs to know ahead of time what IPs can be whitelisted so that they have no block towards accessing the internet. This is not possible with DHCP based allocation as a customer does not know ahead of time what IPs can be whitelisted. Below is a screenshot of this exact same problem a customer ran into public preview. We are excited to share that the static virtual network feature is targeted for public preview in June. There will be support for static IP pools and static IP assignments for your network interface cards on your VMs. You can now create a virtual network with static IP pools. Once you've created the virtual network, you may either choose to automatically assign an IP address within the specified pool for your network interface cards, or you may choose to assign a specific static IP from this pool to your network interface cards. Some of how you would do that on the portal is highlighted to your right in the Create Arc VM flow. More of this will follow in the demo where you will see a detailed explanation on how these things work on the CLI as well as on the portal. I'm excited to share two demos. The first demo is going to be on Azure CLI, and the second demo is going to be on the Azure portal. For the Azure CLI demo, it's going to be a three-step process. The first step is to create a static virtual network on your HCI cluster. The second step is to create a network interface card with a specific static IP from the static IP pool specified on the virtual network you just created. And the final step is to create a VM and assign this newly created network interface card to the VM. What it does is when the new VM is provisioned, it will be assigned the specific static IP you requested for from the static IP pool specified on your virtual network. Let's take a look at the demo. This is the command to create a virtual network. Key in your subscription, resource group, and custom location. This is the name for the virtual network, the address prefix, And we're going to create an IP pool start and end range of 10.0.0 to 10.0.0.14. IP allocation method is static. This is what makes the virtual network static in nature. I'm passing the vSwitch name of my local setup, that is internal net. Now let's run this. We can see that the virtual network has been successfully created. With the address prefix, the IP allocation method is static, and you've got the start and end IP ranges you've specified. The next step here is to create the network interface card. So there are some basic parameters that you'll need to pass for network interface card. Make sure to pass your subscription, your resource group, and your custom location. Give a name for your network interface card. For me, it's test vNIC2. Pass your virtual network name as the subnet ID, and IP allocation method is static, and the specific IP address you need, that is 10.0.0.8. This is within the range of the pool we defined earlier, which was 10.0.0.0 to 10.0.0.14. We now see that the network interface card has been created successfully with the private IP address of 10.0.0.8 that you've passed. The final step is to create a VM. So there are some basic parameters that you would need to pass when you create a VM. I'm going to key in those in my command. I'm going to pass all these parameters as default values that I have for my setup. So it's going to be the resource group, custom location ID, the name of your VM, the name of the image that you're creating your VM with. The NIC ID should be the NIC that you just created earlier. And then pass your username, computer name, and run it. Our VM is successfully provisioned. To further see this, the VM is successfully created with the static IP address. The second demo is going to show how to use the Azure portal to do the same thing we did via CLI. So I'm going to fire up my Azure Arc virtual machine create page. I'm going to fill in the key details such as subscription, the resource group. I'm going to call my virtual machine Northwind Web 1, pick out my custom location, specify an image, the virtual processor count, and the memory. Next, I go to the networking tab. I add a network interface. I'm going to call my network interface NIC01, and I'm going to pick out the network that I just created, which was test vnet, and from the CLI. This is static in nature. And for the allocation method, I'm going to specify manual. I want to pick out a specific IP for this NIC. In the previous CLI demo, I picked out 10.0.0.8. For this one, I'm going to use 10.0.0.9. Here you can see the IP start and IP end for the static IP pool that we just created in the CLI. Now I go ahead, review plus create, and create it. So once you create, you can see that the VM Northwind Web 1 is created, and it has the NIC NIC01 that I specified with the 10.0.0.9 specific static IP you requested for. This brings us to the end of our demo. Hope you had a lot of fun learning about all the new features that is coming soon to public preview. To summarize, here are some key takeaways. We learned about the current capabilities of Arc VM networking, the benefits of static virtual networks, the timeline for feature availability in public preview, and finally, how to configure an Arc VM with static IP, both on Azure CLI as well as on the portal. For more information on understanding Arc VM management networking on Azure Stack HCI, here's a link. And finally, this brings us to the end of our presentation. Thanks for watching.